recording started. Alright, art critique time! Today... I still have the thing? No, okay. Today I want to do it for a map. I think this is gonna be the third time I will do this. But I feel like doing the art critique for Upward. And this time uploading to YouTube. What happened on the previous time? The first time I didn't record it, the second I recorded, but there was some sort of problem with the recording. I don't remember what it was. Oh, whatever. Maybe my voice was weird. I'm not sure I remember. Sure. Let's do the art critique for Upward, third and hopefully final time. Also, as always, disclaimers, I'm not gonna focus too much on game design, I'm gonna focus more on the visuals. Talk a little bit about game design though, but not gonna go too in deep. Too in depth. What else? And also this critique is gonna follow Feldman's method, which means that first I'm gonna describe what I see, then I'm gonna analyze the elements of art, then I'm gonna interpret the creative vision, and then I'm gonna judge this as successful or unsuccessful art based on the principles of art. Those are the 4 steps of the Feldman's method. So let's begin! Description. So we are somewhere in a room here. Well, not exactly any room. This place is open, oh my god, and there's like a ship down there. There's these cables and some structures down there. There's like a port, there's an island. There are like bombs in here. Cards, crates, ammunitions, word map, company logos, bench towels, scale, the locker, what else, stuff. So look at this, it seems like this is like a docking port, right? Where they bring stuff and they like bring stuff to that building, then that building they use that building to bring the stuff up here, right? I forgot the proper verb, I wanted to say that. And the bombs, apparently. And yeah, this is all like a wooden structure, shack thing. What else? We have Glasgow stuff, calendar and billboards of workplace environments, more company logos, the blackboard, the open lockers with the paraphernalia of the Mercs. What else? Industrial wire coils. Drinking cocoa. What else? And up here, the computer stations. Classic 1442. Bunch of tapes and machines to either play or record the tapes. The usual. And more details of the wooden structure, like, right? We don't need to go too in depth about it. Although I do want to go here to the left. Yeah, 0 days without an accident warning. Workplace environment warnings. More industrial wire core crates. Over here I wanted to have a look at this because we have like some sort of makeshift fence. And we can kind of see the side of the mountain, the rocks, a bit of vegetation and a bit of the buildings. Do you know that over there is actually near the end of the map? They connect? And what else? Also there's another more paraphernalia barrel here, and I guess I should mention like also the way these walls look even look makeshift, right? Some metal plates and this like chain link fence there. Mopping bucket, hose, and when we get out, we're here in the open. We have like a bunch of buildings, right? We have like this building on the right, a lot of blue in its walls and the metal plates. There's the blue company logo there, Builders League United, one of the subsidiaries of Menko, I believe. The roof has, I'm gonna talk about it on the analysis, but has like, it seems a bit rusty and stuff. Has, we can climb on top of the roof. This is unsafe, don't do this at home. And what else? And over there we can look at, there's more of these buildings with, I'm not sure they are makeshift exactly, but they are unique, I would say. Because they don't look like houses, at least not to me, that's not how I would describe them, but I'm not sure if they're like, what function are they serving exactly. This was like a mining facility or whatnot. Like many different maps. Not all of them, but a number of them. Then we go up over here. So considering the angle over there, behind this, you know, another fence and stuff, over there should be one of the ship and the part, but there is another one here, right? So although there's no ship, but there is like the part, and there is like the building and the cable here. So more of that, and this is interesting because we can see here. We can see a little bit better the height of the mountain and how it goes down. Maybe they could have added a bit more detail on that part. You know? There's just like a bunch of textures, and we can kind of see the forms of it. But in any case. Yeah, there's like all the rocks. We can see a little bit of the geography of the mountain. If this is a mountain, spoiler, I guess. Yeah, of this area. So this is kind of a mountain, right? You can see this is an elevated place because of stuff like this. And over there, you can see another part, and another island. Apparently, over here there is no island. Also, it's like all like misty, I suppose, in the distance, right? But this looks like either the ocean, probably the ocean, right? Also because there's the ship there. Not sure this would be I guess it could also be a river, but I guess a more reasonable guess, perhaps, would be that this is the ocean. Especially if the ship is about transcontinent shipment, you know, right? What else? More of those makeshift fences. There's like these rocks, small patches of vegetation. The ground is, you know, there's like gravel and dirt and stuff. We have like this Arabic signs, this like skull sign, danger, danger, you may fall here, okay, thank you for warning me. This kind of makeshift bridge thing, more of that. What else? Let's just move on. Here we have these wooden walls for this part of the structure. There's an arrow sign there. Ah, something new, interesting. There's a big A in here, red A, and here, you know, this this is the hologram in the middle of the payload rails. Ah, I forgot to mention it, but yeah, look at this. There's like, oh my god, there is this rails here coming from all the way to the spawn room and the base, and they keep going. Kind of obvious for a true player, especially one who likes to play on payload. Also, there's the payload. It's like a bomb of rails basically on a sort of a cart. But yeah, we gotta mention this for this critique. And also behind the payload, there's like a bunch of ammo, and there's like this oxygen canister, I guess, and a small chimney or something. Yeah, the payload is a very has a lot of. It's a unique thing, I would say. Also, to cry some more. I have done an art critique specifically on the payload. If you haven't, it's on YouTube. If you haven't watched already. What else? Yeah, okay, not much here. I should talk about mining cart. Not much else. Also, we haven't looked over here, but there is not much to see. Just more of these rails. And yeah, I'm going over here. We can explore more of this structure, more of these wooden beams. I just wanted to mention that there is like some sort of metal platform thing on top of the rails, on the part where there's the hologram. And what do you know? Lab Excavation Demolition, the red company logo also is the hologram. There is like this part where it emanates the red light. What else for the description? Pickups, medium health pack, and over there is the big one. There is some over there also, right? And medium ammo here. What else? Interesting to notice that the metal plates here are in red. We're not gonna talk more about it on the analysis. If we move on, there's like more of these buildings built on top of this mountain thing. In here, if we go... and also the rails, I think it's a good takeaway to make us think that maybe this is a mining facility, right? Which makes me think like, what's the purpose of this sort of building? You know, this weird... trapezoidal shaped building, let's say. I'm gonna talk about there more on the analysis. But what else for the description? Capture point. There's a little warning here. There are lamps. What else? Here, this looks a lot like a mining facility. Warning, unsafe. I guess we can... Don't do this at home, as we cheat. And no clip. Close your eyes. Okay, now I can open that again. No clip 0. This is the looting spawn room later. Can I leave? No, even though I'm a blue player. later in the match, but there's not much different, right? There's again another open locker, another locker, white locker, calendars, stuff, great. I guess there's like a lunchbox here and a cup of coffee, coffee can, but whatever. Yeah, so close your eyes again, I promise this will be quick. You can open it again. I say that half jokingly, but it's good practice to try to respect the author's presentation as much as we can. Because the angle that you look at things matter also. Stuff like that. But anyway, and when I say the author's presentation, basically it's about the game design, it's about roughly the experience that you would have as a player, you know? Because technically you can, like, the things that I do with no clip, technically a lot of it you can do as a soldier rocket jumping, for example, except going through walls, I guess. But there's a lot of, depends a lot on the angle that you look at things, and, you know. Anyway, let's just try to keep it simple. What else here? So yeah, this looks like a little bit of a more dug out part of the mining facility, if this is truly one, and I would guess so. A bunch of planks here. Another angle of the side of this mountain, more of the same. I guess we didn't see this part before, or that well, but not much to say, right? There's just another mountain there, or I think there's maybe a specific name for this sort of geography that's not a mountain. Plateau maybe? Not sure if a plateau applies here. Anyway, some pickaxes and shovels. Again, pickaxes, yeah, so a lot of clues that would make sense for a mining facility, right? That we can infer that this is a mining facility from these things. Either that or there it looks like a cover-up that looks like a, or they're covering up for something looking like a mining facility, I don't know. Anyway, okay, so up on this part, more of the same, more mining carts, another of the structures. I mentioned this before, this is one of the buildings that I think makes somewhat the most sense to me. If this is like where if they have a Morse code machine, what's the name of it? In Portuguese it would be telegram? I don't know, telegram machine? I don't know if that's how you say it. If there is something like this inside here, I think this would kinda make sense, right? Although there's no ladder for you to climb on inside this building, but I could understand if there is like that's the purpose of this place, so you can go here and receive and transmit messages. There is like the cables that go up there, although there's no antenna there, just some cables, but whatever. Yeah, but one of the buildings that I think, to me, I can kinda imagine a use for it in a mining facility or whatnot, just in a workplace environment. Over here, more of these buildings, more of the rails, more of what we have already described, more vegetation. Also this fence, another makeshift fence, I guess. Over here, also have the small pack. This small room here, but not much else to talk about. I'm not gonna focus to talk too much about the geometry per se, at least not right now. We have a set of platforms here, barrels. When we move on, here things get a little bit more different, right? We have like this red brick wall and what appears to be some sort of sewers or some sort of exit for the sewage to get out and just follow the mountain. And yeah, and screw the environment, I guess. That's probably why we don't see any patches of vegetation down this part here, because they were just throwing sewage water there, apparently. And here inside we can see all these pipes, so if this is all about hydraulics or transport of liquids, it could also make sense. The sewers being one of them, or maybe not. Not sure, probably not. A bunch of indicators and valves and gauges, buttons and stuff, so it makes sense if you're handling water pressure, gas pressure or whatever. Maybe you need that if you're excavating. Well, okay, on a mining facility, not sure if you would need that, but maybe you would if you're, depending on what kind of machinery you're using, I'm guessing. In here some sort of fluid container, and in there. Here, close your eyes, Billy, this is gonna be over soon. Ah. You can open it again. Okay, again, more of the same, but there is something a bit cheeky that I would like to mention on this spawn room. This is the red spawn room, in which is, have you ever looked beneath? Yeah, there's like this grid, and indeed you can see underneath. And Billy, close your eyes again. This time, trust me, Billy. Okay. You can open that again, Billy. And yeah, you can totally see the enemy players from down here. Did you know that? It's limited uses, you know, because when you are fighting, when the enemies are spawning on that spawn room, you're fighting for this control point, and vice versa, and you're far away from them. So if you see someone spawn, it's kind of hard to make use of it, but I find it cool. I guess if you are the red team defending, maybe you could look at this point to see when someone's spawning, maybe. In any case, let's move on with the description, right? Anything else? More of the structures, I didn't mention this before, but a lot of wood was used for these structures, like either wood or metal plates again. I have this part here, which is very dangerous, I would say, close to the canyon. Another part with the ship. Oh no, is this... Oh no, I think this is the one we saw at the beginning. So yeah, we did a full circle. So yeah, just to say that this part is very dangerous, very close to the canyon here, to the edge of the mountain thing. When we got inside here, also there is these things, but probably tied to the functioning workday of mine or workplace environment facility. What else? If we move on, Jenkins Coco, another company logo or advertisement, Red Valley Mining, Hemp Farmers Cooperative, there's a bunch of them, this is Team Fortress 2. Here this is interesting, this is like an opening that closes during the match, right? We're gonna get a better angle to see it. Some windows here, something different, because I wasn't paying... Okay, there are some windows there, so there were some windows on these structures, I guess I was just not stopping to mention them. A door here, I guess, also. With a lock. What else to describe? This part things got a little bit different because the walls got all white, basically. I'm gonna talk about... Color is an element of art, I'm gonna talk about it on the analysis, but there's like these bricks painted white, and these metal plates painted white, a lot of white in here. And there's a big hole in the middle of this area, oh my god, that's where the bomb goes when we push it and play here on payload. And this part here, more red bricks, but if we go here we're like underneath the whole wooden platform structure here. Except on this part, I guess. And here you can see the hole through another angle. Very interesting. It's a very big hole. And yeah, if they were mining for something, maybe this was a consequence of the mining or was used for something. Although it's so weird the way it is, right? It doesn't feel like there's a tunnel down there, or maybe, I don't know, maybe they used the drill to dig it and they were going to make, I don't know, an elevator to bring the miners down there. We can let our imagination go wild, but for this art critique, what matters is just to describe that it's a big hole in the middle of it. What else? Also, very big D. These are like indicators of the control points, right? There's like 4 A, B, C, D on this map through the payload's track. This barrel is biohazard, those, watch out. Warning, man working. And if you climb up here, oh look, more ducts, I guess, and a ventilation duct also. What else? Here we have some sirens. Resupply, wire coils, crates, and this is the spot that I was mentioning before. Nothing too cheeky. There's like these guardrails, and that's it. You can get down there. Matters more if you're playing the game, right, rather than critiquing its art. And what else? And I think the last thing that I ought to describe is just fire extinguisher. It's like this part over here. More of the same, more pipes and ducts, more controls indicators, a window. We climb up here to the set of stairs, metal stairs. More of the same, more of the same. Here, more of the same, although here we have a clock and a chair, so a little bit more casual. And this wasn't the last one, because you still gotta see the last spawn room, right? And over here, more of the same, crates this time. And more of these buildings. Okay, now close your eyes, Billy. We're just gonna see inside the last red team spawn room, and then we're gonna begin the analysis. And here, here a lot of the same, but some things are different. Notably, the aesthetics, I guess. The ground is like red and the walls are white. The other control points were all like made out of wood, right? So, bit of a nice change of pace. Also, you can see like this here, there's support beams up there. Computer stations, and a coffee machine and some book things and water cooler, but the rest is more or less what you have seen already, right? And here's some trays with some random stuff, I guess. Communicator. So that ought to be good enough. Close your eyes, Billy. That should be good enough for the description. Just describe the whole place, basically. In general. So we didn't, for example, repeat ourselves. I tried to repeat myself the least I could. Also, these metal plates are a bit rusty and orange. Reminds us of the roofs at the beginning of the map, right? Anyway, let's move on finally to the analysis. So for this analysis, I'm gonna be considering 8 elements of art: points, lines, shapes, forms, space, texture, color, and value. I just want to mention that because most authors, I guess, sources consider 7 elements of art, but some consider 8, add points, basically. It's all... just points is the difference, and the other 7 are the same. But some authors consider points, and I follow those authors. Anyway, so let's begin with the analysis. Okay, let's talk about color, for example. We have like all this, like a shade of white or yellow. I haven't fixed this problem, I forgot. I don't know why I guess I can just kick the person. I don't know why this game lists my... whenever I just like do map and stuff, the game lists me on the server list or something. I forgot to fix that. Anyway, as I was saying, we have like a shade of... I guess it's a shade of white on the ground with all these parts of the mountain with this dirty texture on top of it. Similarly on the rock, right, we have like this rough and dirty texture on the rock. On the rock we also have all these farms, a lot of like minute, intricate farms on the rocks. It's kind of hard to describe it, you know. It's something very regular and very full of detail. By the way, forms and shapes, just a reminder, shapes are 2D, forms 3D for an art critique. You know, in your day-to-day, if you say shapes, forms, people are kinda the same thing, but for an art critique, that's the difference. But anyway, what else could I mention? There is also green on these patches of vegetation, or the element of color. Element of color on the white here, and I was mentioning textures. There's the element of textures, element of forms. What else? We could mention also color on the brown and the gray for the metal parts of the rails, which go like through the whole map, right? And we have like these rectangular shapes and flattish forms and this very long form also for the metal part. What else? The sky is blue also. I might as well mention the element of space right now, because there's like all this expansive, there's all this expansive part, you know, we are in the open basically. And but also there's like, and it gets a bit less generous in the element of space depending on where we are. So there's like all these open parts, but then especially when we get like inside buildings, and depending on the route it gets a little bit less generous, a bit of tighter. Common for the infantry shield, and I'm seeing it for this map here. So basically kind of intuitive, right? On open spaces broader use of the element of space, and on closed spaces inside buildings is a tighter one. Could be different. Imagine like Harry Potter, where you get inside a tent and alternate dimension, wherever the tent is huge, you know. Some food for thought, I guess. And also the tightest by far, as usual, is like on the details. Stuff like the space between every single step of the stair, or just like these tight gaps, so between every single rock, like the tightest use of space. A lot of tight uses of space for details. Basically they're not all like glued together like some sort of mishmash thing, I don't know. What else? Lines and points. For points there's a lot on this part here, right? There's like texture, and perhaps you could say there's a bunch of points, but both are kind of like the same thing in this case. What else? On the wall though, sometimes there's something like that, but I think in this case not. This would be like a texture, by the way. This is like a scraped off texture, like paint that was scraped off, or a bit of a rough texture also on some parts, I would say. But like the graded paint is how I would describe it. What else? Let's talk about color, right? The obvious. There's all this blue on the building. I did mention it before, and there is here also. I did mention a shade of white for the ground. Although, mind you, there's a lot of brown inside the building, so that's interesting, even though there are details in blue. And white and other colors. There's a lot of, especially on the Farfernalha, for example, there's more variety on the details. So, but there's a lot of brown, and there's also shades of white for the wood here, which is interesting to think about, I would say. And here there's so many like small things with unique farms that I'm not gonna describe all of them, but I will mention this. There's like a lot of many different farms on the bombs. There's like the grades and small things. There's this object thing here that stops the payload. There's like the scales, the towels. I could like stop to look at every single one, but I don't think it's necessary. What else? Not sure I already mentioned, but there is like green for the patches of vegetation, color, and not that much of not that much farms to them. They're mostly flat in farms and in shapes, and farms that have like all these like sprawling, protruding parts to them. What else? Lines. I did mention lines. Let's see. Lines. Not always I find. So here we have some use of lines. Also tying to the detail, very minute elements of space, right? For the space between every single blank, but I would say there's also the element of lines here. In this case, the lines are mostly regular in thickness, although we have some variety, right? Watch out. I don't know. Sure, I'll say it like this for this critique. So they have like, I was thinking, are they really lines? Because this question always bugs me. But yeah, okay, for this critique I'll consider this as lines. One of the philosophical debates of this kind of stuff, whatever. Anyway, so that's the use of lines there. As I was saying, somewhat regular in thickness, although there's some variety. They're in general straight. I guess some variety, not perfectly straight, but very hard to see curvature here per se, or edges. There's some edges, I guess, but a lot of straightness in general. And what else? The chain link fence, I would consider them farms and shapes. I don't believe there are lines. I don't believe there are any lines here. What else? A lot of cylindrical and flat farms here. What else? We have other buildings, I forgot to mention that. So we have a lot of like trapezoidal shapes, prismatic farms with all these like sloped roofs. I suppose also depending on the angle, like rectangular shapes, and perhaps we're gonna find hexagonal ones depending on the angle that you look. hexagonal ones, not perfect, not a regular hexagon, but like, can I show it easily? Not easily here. I just need a box to show how a box can give her. Maybe this cylinder is good enough. So like, no, it defeats the purpose. Sorry. I think maybe I can find a way easily to use those boxes. I just need to scope them, get to a higher ground and scope them. Okay. So the idea is like through this angle, the shapes are 2D. It has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish shapes. Okay, this one is not good because it's being blocked by the other one. Okay, this one I want to do it. This one is easy. So this box here, the shorter one, has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 side streets. So it's a hexagonal shape. This box, actually, this one also has a hexagonal shape, right? It's just it's a concave hexagon because like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, so it's kind of going side. It's a concave shape, as we call it. But anyway, yeah. So blocks kind of give out hexagonal shapes and rectangular shapes depending on the angle that you look at them. What else? I talked about so much. I mentioned blue there. There's a lot of red and white in here, right? I mentioned this before, but these metal plates were painted red. Those were painted blue. Also, by the way, we have like this undulating, wavy texture on the metal plates. Very iconic. 1342. What else? I already said so much, not sure how much else is there to talk about. The control point has like this holographic texture and the classic point-like form here, right? Circular shape. The metal platform has this pattern texture to it, and it's in gray. What else? Red here when it comes to color, yeah. What else? Is there any element that I'm kind of overlooking? Light and darkness value. That's right. There's usually not that much to talk about 1342 because it's kind of random, quote-unquote random. There's a lot of shiny parts. I guess I'll mention the usual is that the shades are usually mild, and we can still kind of make out the details of the textures even when we are under the shades. And there are also a lot of brightness. And when I say they are kind of random, what I mean is that there is a lot of both of them, but it's not. Actually, it's kind of unfair to say it's random because one trait that they usually care about is following the realism of the shapes of the shadows. You know, so the sun is up there, and the way it's casting a shadow on the ground, it's kind of roughly respecting the shapes of the buildings, the farms of them, I guess. And so some care for realism is there, on the use of value, light and darkness. And what else? But other than that, like, there's hardly any sort of pattern as I see it. It's like this part's a bit shadier, on that one's a bit brighter. And here, you know, they don't try to do it to, let's say, convey some sort of message with the light and darkness as I see it usually. There was one map where I saw something cool that was King of the Hill Cauldron, where I thought it was a very dark map but with a lot of candles that I thought it was a very cool use of light and darkness. But in here on Upward, I don't see that being explored. But anyway, over that part I think that's mostly it. I guess I didn't mention, but there's an arrow shape. The arrow is shaped as an arrow, nothing new. There's the beam. What else? Elements of shapes and color. On this part, we have the red bricks, so there's the use of red for the element of color, and all these bricks for texture and forms, I guess we could also say. On this part, cylindrical forms for the pipes. A use of black here for these control panels, and a lot of new details in like shades of red and yellow and white for color, and new forms, right? And a lot of like unique different forms and stuff, a bunch of details I would say. Let's see if there's anything else to analyze, because I think I have... also there are like barrels in many parts of the map. which have like either, depending on the angle, they have, can I see it? They're gonna have circular shapes, or more either circular, either rectangular shapes, or more commonly something oblong. On this angle, it's like an oblong, as we say, in the shape, and forms, you know, cylindrical. They're barrels. That one's red. There were some blue ones. There's a yellow one later down the map. What else? A lot of, because of stuff like this on the wooden planks here, there's a lot of this blocky, very thin forms and shapes also, I guess, on parts like this. What else? Anything else worth mentioning that I haven't already, or I have already mentioned the white and red, the shade, the texture, the textures. What else? I don't know. There's this thing with like a somewhat of a disc-like form, use of gray. What else for the element? I have already mentioned this before, but the element of color is notable because it's all white here, right? In the contrast with the rest. And finally, the whole, so okay, element of space here. So this is a unique element of space because of the way it's used, right? Differs a lot from the other parts of the map, from the expansiveness of the open areas and the more tightness. I mean, it's a hole, you could say it's somewhat tight, but I would say like the shape of the hole is very unique, I guess. What else? Anything else worth mentioning that's not like a detail? Element of color on that, the design of the ratting spawn on that part. And again, a lot of variety in the shapes, forms, and color of the details inside. I already mentioned the textures here, this wavy texture on the metal. I don't know. Maybe that's it for the analysis. We have been through, I think. We have been through. Another pattern texture on the metal here. A lot of gray, a lot of white, a lot of brown, whenever there's wood, and on specific parts, red and blue, because this is Team Fortress 2, for me and you! Woohoo! Anyway, just seeing if I missed anything, but I think nothing major. There is, for example, this thing, I guess, this is kind of a blocky form, painted yellow, yeah. I think the most iconic, most parts of the map were analyzed already for the elements. Did I just miss anything? And I didn't say much for points and lines because they're either repeating what I said before. So again, we have like a lot of straight lines, varied in thickness, and with some edges, but not that sharp edges and very hard to see curvature. And again, much like before, I would also consider this the element of space, and like these minute gaps between the planks. But yeah, and we could say there are some points here, I suppose, because on these details, right? So okay, cool. I didn't analyze these points before. So they're mostly like about nails or small details of the wood, right? So we could tie that to imperfections of the textures of this woody texture. I didn't mention this, but we have like this woody textures on the wood, showcasing like the veins of the wood or stuff like this. Pretty cool. Some use of lines there, I suppose, also. But I think I think that's more of a texture. Those are also lines, but following in line what I said before. But anyway, yeah, points. For points, that's how I see it. They're mostly scattered all around. There's some groupings of them, and what else I would analyze. And they're, I guess, mostly black in general. Not sure if there's an exception. Maybe they're all black even. All that I saw are black, at least. I'm not sure I saw any point that's not black here for these ones. Anyway, points, lines, mentioned a lot of shapes and forms, space, mentioned texture, color, and that. Let's said a lot about all of them. I think the last thing I'll mention is just like the islands. So the plateau, the mountain on the islands follow a lot the textures and the forms and shapes of the smaller rocks in here that we have in here. So like this one, the texture of it, and the farms, as I said, not the smaller ones, right, the bigger ones. The unique farms with a lot of details and uniqueness that can kind of make it hard to describe it with just a single word or something, you know. And so I'll mention that. Also, they're big, I guess, if we're gonna talk about the size. Again, that's basically the elements of shapes on forms. And wow, I just realized there's some, like, vegetation on the mountains. Oh, cool. I hadn't noticed that detail. But yeah, a use of green, some kind of like polka shapes there, right? And looks a bit of a flattish form to me. I don't know. And the last thing that I think I want to talk about is that the water is blue. The ocean is blue and has this like wavy texture. This one is moving, but matters little to us that it's an animation rather than an illustration. That's moving, not staying still. Okay, so nice. I think that's a very true analysis, and now we can finally get to the interpretation, the part that we can consider other stuff. We can think about the name of the map. We can think about the game design. That's the interpretation. And your crazy theories about the mining facility or whatever. What were they extracting here exactly? Of that we can. The interpretation is the step to think about all that. So let's begin with the basics. The idea that this was designed as a map for Team Fortress 2 payload, I think it's a very easy one, right? So, and I will be interpreting it again. We have described the payload, have described the control points and all these details on the description, and we also analyzed the elements of art in those. There are the rails and all that stuff. If you play this in game, you have seen upward, so yeah. For a map of Team Fortress 2 is the idea that I'll be adding to the creative vision here, so interpret. What else? What else was the author's vision here? The name. Okay, so that's another easy interpretation, I would say, that I have many clues for it. So the name of the map is Upward, and we're in this sort of mountain, right? When we go to the side of it, we can see the height of it. We are in this sort of mountain, and indeed the payload kinda goes in a sort of an upward trajectory. On some parts it's flat ground, some parts it even goes down a bit. Like here it goes briefly downwards, but then it goes upward again. So this idea of climbing upward a mountain and stuff like that, I think was easily a part of the author's vision when they were designing this map to give the players this sort of fantasy, you know, that you're climbing a mountain, bringing the payload upward to the last control point. Okay, if that's said, not sure if that's kind of redundant. I won't call this redundant. I will say that also the idea that this is some sort of mining facility, to have those sort of teams, you know, we have some other number of easy clues. We have like the mining carts. Technically the payload is in a cart, is on rails also, and so to give this vibe that we are in a mining facility, we have the pickaxes that we have described before. We have and stuff like that. Stuff like those are clues that I think they wanted to make this a vibe of the map, the setting. So a mining facility, and also the hole at the end, if that would be part of a future excavation site, you know. What else? Anything else? So for now we have the ideas of a Team Fortress 2 map, the experience of climbing a mountain, the vibe, the setting, fantasy of being a mining facility. There's also stuff like Janky Coco, you know, this sort of clues. What else? For the author's vision here, there's a lot of buildings on this map, and previously on my previous critiques of Upward I have mentioned consider them an important part of the author's vision, just because there are so many of them, you know, and they're so big and so easy to see. I wonder if I'll be adding them again to this one. I don't know if the buildings were that important for the author's vision, even though there's so many of them. I guess a number of them we could just think that's like, oh, it's where the miners are storing their stuff or something, so maybe I will this time. This time I'm not sure I'm feeling it, let's say that. I'm not sure it's that reasonable to consider the buildings as an important part of the author's vision. Especially if you just think that, oh, they were used by the miners. What else? To contribute with this idea of a mining facility. Anything else for the author's vision here? Payload, upward. You can try to think about game design a bit. What do you know about upward? Oh, it's somewhat open in the beginning part, right? And then there is like this part here, and that's the first choke point, that's the first control point. Not choke point necessarily, first control point. Then there is like this part here, yeah, it kind of falls very well in line with the idea of the mine, the idea of going inside this more tighter part. I guess there is like all this open part in here later, and then you can shoot around people. This part is also open. Okay, so interesting, we're seeing, when we think about it, there's a number of open spaces in upward so far. What else? On this part here, again somewhat open, though this part doesn't see that much traffic, I guess. And then we have like the edge of the mountain on this part of the map, where that's the part where you can get environmental kills more easily, right? And you have this part again very open, even though there are like tighter spaces here. So it's not all open, but there's a lot of open spaces compared to, I don't know, Junction. I don't know. Although Junction would have some tighter spaces than others, so we gotta be careful when making that analysis. What else? And then finally we have this part. This part is a tighter one of the map. It's the very end of it, and it's funny because there is a lot of room, but since the big hole in the middle takes a lot of space, it's not that easy to maneuver, I would say. Like around the enemy. You know, if there's no around, you can go anywhere you want, but around the enemy and stuff like that. Looking at it just game design wise, I don't think there's that as much room to maneuver as comparison to the previous parts. And indeed there is like this tighter spots here. I guess over here inside is somewhat open, even though there are all these wooden beams, so it's not that open really. Without the wooden beams it would be open, but the wooden beams kind of screw it, right? I don't know. Okay, all that said, game design wise, would I add any idea to the vision? I don't know. There is a lot of open spaces, but there is also a lot of tight spaces and stuff like that. I'm not sure I would say anything specifically considering all that. If you want, you can say, if you are doing this critique of your own, you could say, if you want, like oh, they wanted a map with a lot of open spaces to give that experience to the player, but I'm not sure I would say that. Just because there's a lot of tight spaces also, and I don't know. No, actually, you know what, I was saying not specifically about open spaces, like spaces with a lot of room, but I will interpret that part of their vision was for the player to fight in a, like, kind of an open area, yeah, but especially, how should I put this? I don't know, yeah, I guess in the open. I don't know why I was thinking, maybe I was overthinking this. Actually, on a number of spots, I was thinking like, there is a number of open space. I guess the point is that the payload is always on, many parts is on open spaces. Perhaps that's kind of worth mentioning. That as you keep pushing the payload, it's so many times on open spaces. Either open space or like on this part beside the canyon, which is kind of open and dangerous. So yeah, I will interpret that. I think they wanted, which ties very well with the idea of a mountain, right? Because if you are beside the mountain, then there is the whole vastness of the fall, I guess. But I will consider a separate idea. I will interpret that, yeah, the authors wanted the player to have the vibe of fighting on an open area. Especially the attacking team, right? That's pushing the payload. So, okay, and I think that's ought to be it. Good enough interpretation here. Not sure what else would I add to it. So our ideas for the vision here are a payload map 1442, the fantasy of fighting some sort of mountain, some place high, of climbing a mountain, especially for attacking, some sort of mining facility vibe, I guess, environment, fantasy, I suppose, nod to that. Also this idea of fighting on open space, again, especially the attacking team fighting on, really feeling like you're in some open space. And I think that's it. So those 4 ideas. Yeah, I guess so. This time I won't consider I will consider that there are a lot of buildings, but I consider they are more about subsidiarity to this idea of a mining facility instead of a thing of their own. And that's how I see it this time. I don't know, I changed my mind, I suppose, from the previous critique. But the previous critiques are not on YouTube, so who cares? Anyway, so with all that said, let's move on to the judgment step, where I'm gonna take a look at the principles of art, and at the end of it, call this successful or unsuccessful art. For this, I'm gonna be considering 6 principles of art, which will be movement, unity/variety, contrast, emphasis, balance, and proportion. I say this because it's hard to find consensus on the principles of art, but that's the authors, the theory that I follow. Okay. So, first things first, and I'm not gonna list every single one of them. Let's just see what caught my attention the most. Oh, easy part, I said this before, and I think it still goes, the principle of movement for the rails. Principle of movement is not about animations, it's about how about a work of art can move your eyes or guide your eyes in some path or direction. That is a thing. And I see it here through the rails that kind of guide my eyes to try to see where they go. Specifically, the principles of art refer to how the elements were used, so I always like to mention the elements. In this case, I believe the elements of color, forms, texture of those are helping convey the principle of movement here. And the rails are easily tied to the game design of Team Fortress 2, right? Because the payload, the objective, always follows the rails. Not all rails, but still, it always follows one set of rails. And you can only push the payload through the rails, and it goes forward in the rails, and so on and so on. So it's intrinsically tied to the game mechanic, to the rules of the game. And at the end of it, you push the payload. When you push the payload through the last part of the rails, that's when the blue team win the game, or lose if they're not able to do that. So, you know, easily, visually, then we have a clue, something that ties to the game, to the idea of a payload map for Team Fortress 2. Specifically for payload, right, in this case. I could talk about the principles of contrast for red and blue, for example, but that ties to Team Fortress 2, but in this case we're also tied to the payload game mode, visually through the principles of art. Also, since you have these rails, right, it's also easily to tie that to the vibe, to the feeling of a mining facility, as I mentioned, right? Other stuff that is also helping is the tools. Principle of unity/variety, in this case variety, because there is like this set of tools used here, the shovel and the pickaxes, you can kind of only see them here, they help us convey that idea, I would say. And in this case, through the principle of variety, elements of forms, texture, forms, space, and especially forms, space, no, especially forms and shapes that I would say are the varied ones. But yeah, plus the rails, plus the mining carts, which are repeated. There is a number of mining carts which we could tie to the principle of unity, because repetition is one of the ways to achieve unity. So all of that also helping convey, as I see it, this vibe, this idea of that you are in a mining facility. That's what they were doing here when this was when people weren't shooting at each other here, when they were just working. Okay, what else? I think that's mostly it. There's also the idea of the, as I mentioned, the mountain, right? And for that, I could mention all the repetition continuity on the colors and textures of the ground. There is repetition on the color on the rocks and the ground of the shade of white, similar shades of this white, and also textures on those. The forms and the shapes of the rocks and the ground differ a lot, right? But their colors and the textures are similar. And I think that easily helps us think about the idea that we're in a mountain, because this texture and material and the color of it, I think, are colors of rocks that we can find a mountain with this sort of color. Not all mountains, but I think this ties well. You could also mention, for example, the element of space, because on this very vast part here, and it would be the principle of, we could say the principle of contrast with the vastness of the space and comparing in contrast with the more tighter areas near it, or also proportional, I guess. But in any case, through the element of space, I think this calls our attention also to angles that allows us to look at the rocks and notice how high we are. All of that, I think, makes it easy to feel like we are in a mountain, and important part is that visually that's being easily noticeable, conveyed, and intentionally by the author, right? If we see principles of art tied to it, and when it comes to, and I also mentioned the idea of fighting on open space as a part of the creative vision. So this idea of a mountain, we already have some principles of art conveying it, and both this and the payload rails, I think, both of them working through this idea of fighting in open space, right? Because on the open space there is these shades of white on most parts of the map, not all of it, and there are payload rails being there, no coincidence. And so even if there were rails, even if the payload if the payload did not go through open areas, this part here, for example, this part's an open area where the payload does not go through, but we still see the repetition of the, how do you say, the shades of white, the rough and dirty textures, so I think it's also contributing. But if there was like a rail here, much like, there is, this part's a bit tighter, but there being the rails, if there was a rail here, that would also help because it would be a repetition to it, and guide your eyes, principle of movement, you know. And so all of those are ways where it can happen, and I think they are helping visually the player pay attention that they are fighting in an open area, and it's tied to the vision, with that side of the vision. So easy there. So I think all parts of the vision were covered already. And just in case you're curious, I was talking about if there was a rail here. Because of repetition, it would help with that idea. If there was only one rail here and none other in the map, it could have some problems, but it could help through variety also. Obviously there would be problems with the idea of a payload, but I just want to say that the principle of unity/variety is a very strong principle to help convey the vision. Although it does not always work, but in any case, just wanted to share that, I guess. But case in point, I believe this is a successful work of art. So the rails, I think, are helping convey both through the principle of movement, both the idea of map 4452 and the vibe of a mining facility, and the ground are also helping convey the idea that we are in a mountain, climbing a mountain, because of the nature of rocks, I guess. and because of they are often on open areas, also helping bring the player's eyes to that place, and visually, right? In this case, it even works well for the game design because the payload is also on the open areas, so the players are encouraged to be on these open areas. But visually, and for our purposes, that's what matters. By the way, with the idea of the mountain thing and climbing upwards, you could also mention, I guess, how the rails, again, there's the principle of movement there, and how they keep going upward on a number of occasions. I think that also helps. Basically, because they're extending through all the path, you know, if this was a custom map and then we didn't have the rails visually, even if the payload could kind of move around, visually there would be less clues, you get it. In any case, yeah. And of that, those are just like they're just like the minimum. There could be other principles of art that help the creative vision, but I don't want to make this content too long. But thanks for tuning in. Join me tomorrow for more art critiques and gameplay. See you then. Bye! Oops. Bye. Come on, program. Yeah, I don't care. Okay. Bye. Finally, I hope.